Those of Us, a podcast intended to inspire grit in the pursuit of ideas and what could be through the realities of life as told by entrepreneurs, leaders of people, artists, and creatives.
Let's run the tape.
Guess what happened today? You're all hyped. It's your first Instagram post. Someone said I look like Ryan Reynolds.
Started a Twitter today just to say that. All right, let's jump in before we get carried away.
Go.
Let's do it.
All right, guys, welcome to Those of Us. We got Chad GRUBBS in the house this morning. Entrepreneur, pioneer,
Yeah.
Husband,
forerunner,
partner,
yeah, dad,
situation,
friend,
human.
lover. Welcome to the podcast, bro.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, heck yeah.
This is a fish. Looks legit in here.
It is legit.
Oh, fish.
Oh,
I thought you
fish.
said a fish, and I was like, I'm not sure where to take that.
Looks like Swedish fish up in this mug.
That's awesome. Dude, so how are you today?
Not too bad.
Good?
man.
Started a little early for you? Well, for all of us.
Yeah.
For those of us.
Woke up about 5:23. Kid was ready for some milk, and I just went ahead and got ready.
Man, Kid is
Nice.
the name of your cat.
Yeah. It is. Luna, my daughter, she was
The
ready.
name of your goldfish. Just dump some milk in the aquarium.
Fed the fish for today.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Get it real milky.
That's
Well,
awesome.
this morning is sponsored by Chad's amazing business, Stitch. Most of the B-roll that you guys will see from us snagging breakfast and is going to be in
Yeah.
that beautiful establishment. So
Yeah,
thanks for
man.
bringing us some cuppa.
Yeah. It's what we do for a living.
So, Chad, we operate businesses in the same area, thus I see you almost daily, but I know so little about you. Like we've woven in and out
Yeah.
of the fabric of time for maybe like 4 or 5 years. We've been associates,
Yeah.
but like, where did you grow up? Are you from Oklahoma City?
Yeah. Totally. Mustang. So,
Okay.
the burbs. Yeah.
The burbs.
For our international audience, Mustang is not the burbs.
So no, yeah, grew up in Mustang. Went to the school system all through there. Went and did 3 years outside of Oklahoma for college, and then came back and graduated at SNU. So yeah, almost
Southern
my
Missouri
entire
University.
existence.
It's the time to begin.
It was. This
Wow.
is great.
Way to go.
Yeah. It's a catchy little jingle.
So yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, we love to travel, we love to get out, but there's been very few times that we've
Yeah,
even
man.
considered go anywhere else but Oklahoma. You
Yeah.
know?
Right
So,
on.
yeah.
Whenever you moved away for college, where did you go?
It's a little Bible college out in Springfield, Missouri.
Missouri. What was Missouri like for college years?
Man, honestly, like, it was cool to see just a little bit of
Be somewhere else?
Yeah, a little bit more mountains. Like, you get to get out a little, like, within like 20 to 30 minutes, you get to hit the Ozarks and stuff like that.
God, the Ozarks are beautiful.
But yeah, like some of the lakes, Table Rock Lake, like, it's a cool area. But I don't know that it's necessarily that different either.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Bring us into the world of college Chad. What was college Chad like?
college Chad, to be honest, like, it was a huge, like, so I didn't grow up in the church, none of those things, but I decided, like, my end of my junior and into my senior year, like, I just felt committed to just being in the ministry, you know? And so I went down the path of, like, what does that look like?
Right.
So I went to college for it. I was a pastor for about 2 years, youth pastor, just helping out various churches while I was finishing up college. And,
So in Missouri.
in Missouri, and then in Texas, and then after the Texas, like I was doing them online for a year, and that was just I went back to Springfield for like half a semester, and I was like, man, I'm just gonna go back home. Like none of this really feels right.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't feel right, like home feels right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I came back here, and at least SNU took every credit. So I was like, sweet.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
amazing.
So that was a good deal. But I met some really good people there.
Sure.
I still talk to a few professors that were there at the present time. But yeah, the college days.
It's a very similar experience for me.
Yeah.
Like, went, thought I knew what I was wanting to do a couple semesters. Like, nah, this doesn't feel right. Let's go
Yeah.
back home.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting, it's like that return home is like, oh, it feels safe, but also like I feel a little bit defeated, feel a little bit like, what the heck am I doing with my life?
Right.
Moving back home. So, kind of saying like, oh, what I was going after is not really working out the way I wanted it to. Come back home to reset.
Yeah, I mean, since you don't know me,
Sure.
I would think one thing that anybody that does know me would probably like say amen to this or yes to this. Like, I'm a very like I do what I feel, like I'm connected to who I am and what makes sense to me. So like when things don't make sense to me, like I try something else. Like I definitely am one of those people that are kind of committed to like it has to feel right for me to be committed to it, for me to believe in it and to do it. And so like like being in that community for so long, long as in 5 years, I discovered a lot about like what I could give to the community versus what I could get out, and what I could only help people one-dimensionally. Like that's when it just felt wrong to me.
Yeah.
And so, but I would say like I learned like the foundations of who I am still as a person. Like I totally believe those just came from all my college years.
Yeah.
So I would say I didn't really feel defeated as much as like I hate when I feel like I let somebody down. And so there are certain people that definitely wanted a handful of us that left the church like to kind of be the new cornerstone.
Sure.
So, but we weren't ever treated wrongly or anything
Yeah.
like that. So I
It's
think
kind
it
of
was,
the daunting expectation
yeah,
of like,
I think like people, envision who you could be and what you could be, and
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know that I probably feel more defeated now as like an entrepreneur than I did then.
Man.
That's real.
So like,
Yeah. That is super real. Whenever you moved back here, what did you do, like vocationally? Did you just like go get a normal job while you tried to figure out what you wanted to do, or?
yeah, I mean, so from there, my first like real job from there was I worked at Dell Computers, and just did sales, and then I did that. I got married, I had a kid, and I took another sales job for a company called BibleSoft. So then I was able to at least use my education
Sure.
towards a community that kind of I knew what they were looking for and how to actually help them.
Right.
And basically that was 2008 when the economy just tanked.
Yeah. Sure.
Great year for our
And
nation.
great year for everybody. But yeah, from there, like, is honestly when my entrepreneurship started. I was like, if I can lose my job of being one of the best on the team, then like I might as well carve out my own future.
Yeah.
So yeah, from there I tried everything. I've done web and graphic design to photography to gutters
All for
to
yourself?
coffee shop. Yeah, so like all these.
You
were
did
just,
gutters for yourself?
Yeah, so like
No way. Chad Grubbs, the gutter man.
there's basically a few storms, and my dad had a gutter machine that he wasn't really using, and I was like, why don't I
Which
do
is
it?
so typical of gutter machines.
Yeah. Not being used.
They're just
Yeah.
laying around.
They're just sitting around. My dad just had one. He wasn't really
So-
using it.
Yeah, and so I drove around and called people that had all these roofing signs, and that was like a 2-year stint.
Whoa.
So your journey into entrepreneurship was birthed out of like, I'm not gonna put my future in anyone else's hands.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna forge my own path, my own security, my own kind of dependency on income and my future. That's interesting. So rather than being birthed out of like, this specific passion for one thing, you're more so like, I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Sounds like you were passionate about a lot of things.
no, just
throughout that
like
journey.
I think within my core and probably what I always say who I am to people is like I'm a maker. Like I don't really define myself by like doing like craftsmanship is craftsmanship to me.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
caring about making a great product is kind of like what I like to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's definitively like, I made furniture and all those different variables, but like coffee's no different to me than if I was making a table.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like the same
Sure.
integrity and like just the thought that goes into things and a final product.
Yeah. And you actually use the same tools that you used making furniture to make our coffee this morning, right?
Yeah. A saw
Yeah.
was definitely involved. That's the grinder.
Yeah, the grind the beans.
Yeah.
Miter
So
saw.
it's-
40,
Miter
45
saw,
degree
dude.
angle. Just
Yeah, each
Chop.
one at a time. Sorry for the.
that's amazing. So Chad, you and I met about 4 years ago. You had a shop a little bit farther down the road called OK, which I think was your first coffee venture,
Yeah.
correct? And you ran a shop and still do in a different location in tandem with your now wife. What's that like to operate a business occupying the same space? What unique benefits and joys and struggles come along with that?
Even when we like first met, I think we both wanted something different in life. I think truly that's one thing that just connected us. And I think in some weird way, our thought has always been like, if we love each other, we want to be with each other, like,
Yeah.
let's spend the most time together, even if it's shitty times, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah. Which entrepreneurship gives you plenty of.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, she may have, to be honest, like, now, I mean, I don't even think I've asked that question in 7 years later because we've always done stuff together. But I think when you're so deep into certain things for so long that it doesn't even, it just seems like the
It's your new normal. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think people would look at our lives a lot of times and see all we do is like are juggling and juggling. And I think that's probably one thing that we talk about is just how to stabilize it a little more. But I also just think it's like we're always just trying to be better, so it's kind of like tough to settle.
Yeah.
It's tough to be like, okay, cool. Well, now let's like just streamline this and hang out. Because I think, I don't know if she would say this, but like even the other day, just watching her work, like that's her element. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so like I think we sometimes, and maybe it's bad for us, but like we're just good at working.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, like I think that kind of feels like home a little bit.
For sure.
I mean, I think that's kind of comes with the territory with entrepreneurship too, is your life is so integrated with what you're doing and what you're making and how you're pursuing that like it gets a little hazy in between. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's unique to like that process. It's interesting that you say that people looking at your lives would say that maybe that you guys are juggling. I think from the outside perspective, it definitely looks like really romantic, like to be coexisting together, for her to have, you know, a floral shop, you to have a coffee shop, you guys working together. But I know the pragmatic side of that is like, you know, you guys have kids, you have like a home that also needs taken care of, and like, you know, little you know, oil changes.
It does not get taken care of.
Yeah.
So
all the intricacies in between, you know, being at work. Because my wife and I both work as well, and you know, it's easy to go 3,000 miles over your oil change and every day be like, I gotta change that oil, and then but you're both you know just hustling and going after it. So little things like that slip through the cracks.
No, for sure. I would say the downside is exactly what you just said. Like, we do have to like consciously make an effort to like, how are we going to get the house clean? You know, because it's like the last thing that we do.
Sure.
You know.
And your hours, I mean, she's open a little bit less than you are, but you're open 7 to, what do you guys close at 10 p.m., something like that? Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty intense time commitment in itself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, as far as operating hours.
But I think we get to learn a lot about each other. And I think when we're honest, like, there's probably nobody on the team like that I would, and it's not because she's just my wife, it's because like even just watching her working at the Jones, like even she's just stronger willed than I am. She like won't go to sleep. I'm like, well, you have to have sleep. Yeah. She's like, I'm like, you'll literally die.
It's debatable, Chad. Okay.
But you know, like she like truly leads by example to show like I got us into this. Like, this is my project, this is my company, and I know that I pay other people to do these things, and I could even pay one more person and not be a part of it, but like that's not who she is. Yeah. And so like we learn a lot of those things from each other.
Yeah.
And you know, like I think that's the element that we're truly discovering now is like, at what point do you learn to like give it to other people to accomplish your same mission?
Yeah. Is that a hard process for you guys to hand that over? Like, you're both makers, you're both hustlers.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it is, because so many times people tell me, it was like, well, tell me more about what's going on in your brain, because I don't always know exactly what you want out of me.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, well, I'm just going to do it until it's perfect. Yeah. And I don't always know exactly what that means. Yeah. Because I'm so hands-on that I'm like, I can tell you, but even then, like, after I did it, I would reevaluate it and be like, no, this isn't exactly what I'm wanting.
Sure. You don't have a perfection in mind. You just know that you're progressing towards better and better every time. Sure. Yeah.
And so it's tough to trust people in the sense of like, are they just going to go until it's 100% right? And then how do they gauge that, and how do they communicate that? And I think more that I'm learning is like, as an organization, like, we just don't communicate enough. I'm just like,
man, that's one of the hardest parts about something growing. Yeah, because you used to be so close to one another, and it was like you had the comfort of like texting, because it's like almost your buddy, of like texting them at 11 and saying like, what do we do about, but as you grow more and more, that stuff has to become formalized. It can't be, just so, it can't be so emotionally like tied to your personalities, your
Right.
unique personalities. It has to be formalized somehow. Reaching back, what do you think was like the foundation of your drive to just like not stop till something is finished? Like where does that come from in you? Because it either takes a whole lot of intentionality to develop, or it's something that occurs out of childhood and, early life experience, at least in my,
Yeah.
experience or understanding and talking with other people. So where did that come from for you?
I mean, to be completely honest, like, because I'm pretty open and honest. Like,
Yeah, thanks for being honest.
I feel like most people would say like I'm not committed until the job is done, but I think how I evaluate like until the job is done is probably a little different. Like,
Sure.
like I'm very like going back to the statement I made before is just like I'm a very hands-on feel person. I'm like, what does this feel like? Where should this go? Okay, like I don't think that I could actually achieve this, and so like time and effort. So I'm very pragmatic. I feel like, and like, can I accomplish this? No. Shift, but I do think I always have this drive to like not to be ever evolving till I know like, okay, I can be perfect at this. Like this is what I can really wrap my head around and really do and really. And so I always feel like I've been a person that needs to be like experience based. And I think that's even why I got and fell into hospitality.
Yeah.
Like I don't ever think that I was like, oh, I'm going to be in the restaurant or hospitality business. Like that wasn't necessarily ever in my brain as much as like once I tasted it, I knew that I could have a million experiences a day.
Sure.
And I feel like I love connecting, like that's just what I do love to do.
Sure.
So yeah, like I think from a competitive nature, like that drives you to be like, okay, well, you have to like win.
Yeah.
So I do think like that's definitely within me. Like anytime brothers play sports or friends, like that's just kind of deal. Like
Sure.
you
Right.
don't want to lose.
Yeah.
But I think mostly it's just I don't know that I can just pinpoint it, but I just think sports is probably the biggest driving factor of like keep going, like. But on the other hand, like if I'm honest, like my family was just kind of naturally good at sports, so also a lot of times wonder
It was
like,
just one of those things that felt good.
It felt good, you know what I'm saying? Like I played sports because we were good at it.
It was
I
one
don't
of those
know
things
that it
that-
was
right.
like because we grew up golfing, like for example, and a lot of people that don't do it their whole life. Like
Golfing is hard.
It's so hard, and it's like the weirdest behaviors, right? Like you tell people like, now sit down, like you feel like you're taking a crap, and like make these weird moves. But like for me, like I don't even remember a time that I even had to think about that. Like,
Whoa.
you know what I'm
We
saying?
need to go play golf. I didn't know you played golf. I'd love to go get some
Let's
Chad
do
Grubbs
it.
golf
Let's
lessons.
do it.
I would too. I'm so bad.
Let's just go top golf with them.
I really
I'm down with
enjoy
that.
golf, and I'm a very competitive person naturally, but I just like the nature of competition. I don't necessarily care whether I win or not. Like, it's not one of those things to me where it like ruins my day if somebody beats me at, I don't
Candy
know.
Crush.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's one of those famous multiplayer games like Candy Crush. But I love the nature of competition, and it sounds like that's kind of how you grew up, is just like compete. So did you guys all play golf, or what were your things?
Yeah, I mean, so like my sister was like on a traveling softball team. I traveled for soccer and golf, and my brother was like really good at baseball and golf. So
being good at baseball and golf, I'm sure was really hard on his swing.
it's definitely interesting for sure.
It's very different swings.
But no, I think like when you see somebody really good at something, I think that's what I'm all in. And so like you watch professional athletes, and see like, oh, like they own this. Mm-hmm. Like they own this element, and like it is theirs. And I think, if I could hang my hat in the day before I die, like I would like, to know that like
you're gonna die today.
Not today, but like at some point.
Yeah.
Like I would like to be like, cool, I owned that.
Dang.
Whatever it is,
whatever it is.
And like I was telling Colton, who's been an employee, a friend for the last 4 years, like coffee is one of those things that I've truly fallen in love with, because like you can learn so much about it every single day.
Yeah.
And so it's just a challenging craft.
Yeah, let's talk about that progression. So you, like, just kind of in summary, you grew up in the burbs. You have older brother, older sister?
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Okay, so you're the baby.
Baby Chad.
Yeah, baby Chad. Other than being from, like, like I have a half brother and a half
right,
sister.
I gotcha.
We didn't grow up with them.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So then you go away to school and you come back and you dive right into gutters. I'm just kidding. You did Dell, you did Bible thing, the Bible Tech. What was it called?
Bible Soft.
Bible Soft.
Yeah. He was really creative because the guy was around with the Microsoft era.
Oh, yeah.
And so he thought,
Microsoft.
Bible Soft.
Obviously.
Yeah, duh.
And then, when that all tanked, that's when you started doggy paddling out into the ocean yourself of entrepreneurship. Just like, we got to figure this out. I'm drowning. I might as well be drowning, doing something that I care about and am in control of. So at that point, what was your first thing? What was your
construction and guttering, like
that was your first thing, not the web design and all that stuff.
Those were almost all like
in tandem.
Yeah. Just like do this at home, go out and do this.
Just like catfishing, you just put a bunch of lines in the water.
I was like, because web design, you're like, okay, well, how many contracts can I get? And
you can do that easily from the comfort of your own home between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m.
Yeah, and from there, I met an old friend, Carl Zock from SNU, in a wedding that I was at, and I had been kind of like fiddling around with photography,
right?
And he was kind of the one that showed me like, no, you can like have a career at this.
Sure.
And
what year was that? Do you remember? Man, it's
08.
18.
So that was in
9?
that was in
09.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say 09. And I think from, I don't know, I'm just guessing.
Sure.
But like from probably 2010 to 2012, we did wedding photography.
Who's we?
Jen and I.
Okay.
So you knew Jen at that point.
Yeah.
When in that journey did you guys meet?
Why you gotta ask questions like that?
Why you gotta bring dates into this?
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
You guys had known each other prior to that point.
Yeah. Okay.
So, 2010, 2012, you did wedding photography.
That's basically when we met.
How did you begin that? Like, did you just like put out flyers? Did you put it on your MySpace? Like,
no. Zanga?
Yeah, Zanga, man.
That was after Zanga, though, right?
Totally after Zanga.
Well, some of us were still on Zanga.
Okay. Yeah, I was talking to myself on Zanga because I just thought, man, this is thought-provoking conversations. No,
it's gonna circle back. It's gonna
come back around. I'm gonna commit myself to this. No, honestly, like I started taking photos of my daughter Peyton, and that's all I would do. And I would just put them on Facebook,
Right.
and talk
people,
about what I was doing.
right.
And then like, it was just like GRUBBS photography, you know. And I made a bunch of cards that just said random comments, you know, and
Like you had just random quotes on there?
yeah, random quotes.
Cool.
I wish I could recall them, and I could probably find them on Facebook. But
I love it.
and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do this, and that, you know, how Facebook, the wonder world of Facebook, is like somebody was like, oh, I have a kid, will you take pictures?
Sure.
You know,
Right.
and so that actually is how I met Jen, because we went to the same high school. But like that's how it went full circle. She was in wedding planning, and so the rest is history from there. You know, like
Interesting. So whenever you say we shot weddings, like did she have a camera in hand
Yeah,
as well, or was she
camera
just
in
handing
hands.
you lenses? So she was your second shooter.
second shooter, and we kind of believed in that we knew we had different styles, right? And so like it was kind of like the best of both worlds, because I
Sure.
do think like obviously men and women completely different
Sure.
spectrums.
And awarenesses.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
different awarenesses.
And just knowing like what you would want out of a wedding,
Sure.
and what, yeah, you know.
Sure.
So it kind of worked well, because her natural style is more like close-ups, tight frames, you know, and then I would naturally capture
The room.
the
Yeah.
room and wider spectrum shots. And then when you split up from, you know,
yeah,
bride
going
and
to shoot the
groom,
bride
it's
and groom. Yeah.
just super natural.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um,
That's super cool. So then how did that like fit? I'm trying to figure out how out of all of this you ended up
yeah,
pouring
so
cups of hot coffee.
it is crazy, and I think that goes just back to like me and who I am and how I experience life.
Sure.
But like we opened up, we're shooting weddings. We were kind of looking for a space, and at that point in time, we were trying to get out of weddings because Peyton was starting to play sports, and so like all the weekends were booked
Sure.
up, and we never got to see her do anything. So we found in Film Row a space, and we decided, hey, let's do furniture, and we get in there and we're like renovating, and during that process, we realized we just needed something else in the space. And Jen had been talking about this plant shop idea, and that's even actually how that came about. So we get in, she opens up, we open up, doing furniture, and another space opens up within the Paramount building. And we move over there, and we throw these events, and people keep asking, you know, are you guys open all the time? What does this look like?
Right.
And how a cafe even came about was I asked myself, where have I never had a negative experience? Being so tied, like emotionally driven, like
Yeah.
I landed in the world of coffee. I was like, no matter what conversation I've ever had, even negative, it just seems like a place of like zen,
Yeah.
Interesting.
you know? And so I was like, what if we do this, honey? You know?
It was that conscious at that, like when you started like really wondering what to do with that space and how to evolve it, it was really that like where like that was really the driving question, the singular question.
The singular question for a coffee shop was that.
So if it had been where have I never had a negative experience, a movie theater, like you would have tried to have done like
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I don't
That's,
know.
no,
like,
it's super
but yeah.
interesting that you like you didn't come at it from a passion standpoint. You came at it from what would be well received standpoint, essentially like a business
Yeah.
practicality rather than I just love coffee. Like I feel
Well,
like a lot of hipster type people would want to do coffee just because they're fascinated by coffee, but
Yeah,
you
for
started
sure.
from the other end. You That's just really interesting to me.
Yeah, because your passion in that moment was essentially like a passion for good times.
Yeah, yeah. I think it always is. I think the more people discover like what I want out of a company, and like even that's why I called it okay. Yeah, like the whole driving force behind it was just like, no matter how shitty your day is, like come have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, come enjoy this space for what it is. For
Yeah.
whether it's 15 minutes or 2 hours.
Sure.
Like, you know, and that's why we did like homemade Pop-Tarts. Like that was the whole thing. It's like there's no way you can not have a good time.
Yeah.
Right now. You know,
Eating
throw some
Pop-Tarts.
sugar in your
Yeah.
mouth and throw some caffeine, and you're about to have a good time.
Right. So at that time, the plant shop had been existing over on Sheridan, right? Or not Sheridan.
Yeah, it was Sheridan Lee.
Sheridan,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Okay.
it was the front side of Paramount. But at that time, when we moved everything, and so
Well, that's when I met Jen. Was through the plant shop whenever it moved into Art Form's old offices.
yeah,
And so that was like my first awareness of even what the heck a succulent is.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that it was. I was really fascinated by how kind of cutting edge that concept was, at least in my head. I didn't know that that was like enough of a stylistic direction to be its like own thing rather than
Right.
like a flower shop or
no, for sure.
so I was very, very fascinated. I was working out of what later became Odd Fab, which was next door to you guys.
Yeah.
And I was just so fascinated by the development of there being something called the plant shop. And I don't think that I met you for maybe quite some time, but I would drop in there randomly and
Yeah.
like, anyways. So how did she, the plant shop, react to you going, hey, let's do coffee? Like,
I mean, I think now that we know each other, I think it's expected of me to do something stupid
sure.
at this point. But yeah, I think if anybody, she's allowed me to be dumb most of my life, you know? I think if anything, I'm learning. Maybe I'm more tired of me making dumb decisions.
She just kind of shakes her head and lets you like learn.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think she's ever really been like, yeah, it sounds like the best idea you've ever had.
Sure.
But I, you know, like she 100% supports me and wants to make it legit. You know,
Yeah.
like she wants it to be. I think she we both love the community aspect of it. So I think that's kind of where she's always hung her hat a little bit. It's
Yeah.
just like it is good for the community. But yeah.
I think it's hilarious. I mean, I know that you're not being like 100% genuine in the fact that you think you are making dumb decisions, but like what has birthed from those dumb decisions of you like making moves out of feelings and like this
Yeah.
feels good has birthed such an influential community within Oklahoma City that never would have existed, you know, prior to that. So it's interesting how really just going for things and making things happen, whether they're the best idea in the world or not, and seeing them through and fleshing them out produces fruit that you would have never foreseen from that, you know?
Yeah,
It's
for
not
sure.
like, you know, you're not sitting on piles of cash right now because you know, started okay, yeah, or whatever, but I mean, maybe you are, I don't know. But what was birthed out of that was like community and interaction and connections, not only that you made, but like people who dwelled in that space made as well that
Right.
would have never existed before. Because I officed out of there for 2 years, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is crazy.
Well, to be honest, like half of my statements are how I honestly feel, but I think it's more refreshing to hear people have like great experiences in our space. Because I would think like naturally, I'm always going to look at it negatively.
Yeah.
Like, how can I be better? How can this
Right.
And you know, like I know you can jot it down and be like, I'm not dumb. I know like people have really good moments here, and like
Yeah.
I have good moments with these people. But I think who I am is like a perfectionist. Like I think I lean a little bit on like, okay, so what's not working, and so I do absorb a lot
Sure.
of what's not good about anything.
Yeah.
Sure.
The critical eye. Yeah.
Huh?
The critical eye of your
Yeah,
own.
yeah, for sure. And I, you know, like there's a lot of little things like if you write down like what could I have done differently, you know, but you are correct in the sense like I do dive into things and I do feel like my own intuition of like what people want out of an experience, like I can trust and hang my hat on like
Yeah.
I know that I can create positive experiences.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's something that I feel like I can do in the moment really well.
That's something that you feel like is driven by your personal intuition or by some sort of experience. Like, how do you curate that if you don't come from a family that had a restaurant? Like, how did you, that's just
Yeah.
like intuition? Like, you just ask yourself, what would I want? Or, like, how does that even happen? I don't know.
No, I mean, I guess that's a really good question. Like, how am I confident about that? I guess.
Just goes back to that feeling thing, or it's just like,
I mean, I just think that for the most part, like, I enjoy people enough, and like I don't know. I even kind of went to school for like psychology, and I thought I was
sure,
gonna
I
be
guess so, yeah.
you know, like I thought from ministry that I was gonna go into like neuroscience. So like, I guess all this wrapped up into a ball is like I'm very aware of like human behavior. Like it's always intrigued me.
Yeah.
And so I like learn enough about people's cues and like what they do in
Right.
life,
Right.
kind of like natural behaviors.
Herd management.
Yeah, and so that I just feel like I know how to give what home feels like. Like
Yeah.
I know what hospitality feels like. And yeah, I guess I do lean on like everybody leans on like what they would want, you know, like what does that feel like?
Right.
But like I think everybody wants to feel connected, you
Yeah.
know? And like that's easy for me to do. Like that's just naturally within me to be like who are you? What do you want? Like I can make that happen.
Right.
And I think that's like restaurant wise, it's very easy to just be like, welcome in. Like, what do you like to eat?
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just super easy. You know, like I think what I also learned is how it is not easy for other people.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, like
Yeah.
even people that have been in the restaurant industry forever, like they're more in tune with a system than a person.
Sure.
And so,
Yeah, as an intuitive leader, there's definitely like a cosmic disconnect when you're leading people who are not intuitive.
yeah,
And
because
trying to figure out how do you even give vision for that
Yeah.
when you're like, just know it. You're like,
Well, I think the thing, if I could say, what have you learned in anything when leading people, is that they've all been led, so they all want a leader.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot. Like, well, like why do you need me to lead you when, like, you know how to have, like, you know how
Sure.
to treat people, right?
Right.
And so like I've learned a lot about like, and it's not just about here's your handbook and 30 pages long, but they want to connect with me as much as anything.
Yeah.
And like learn about the same thing we're doing here. You know, like they truly want to make the person that hired them like happy
Sure.
Right.
as much as anything.
And I think the amount that you empower people is amazing within your company, but I think for a lot of people it's uncomfortable because they've never been in a situation where they are empowered in that way.
Right.
So they're
That's-
like,
a
just
lot
tell
of
me
people
what.
don't know how to think, unfortunately, and it's not negative, but
Well,
they've
in that
all been
realm.
trained. Well, here's what you do. you follow these instructions, and it doesn't really matter the cues that you get.
Right.
Like, this is what you do. You tell this person, no, you can't get them this when they ask for it because that's our policy.
Sure.
You know?
You read them a 30-second spiel about the special of the day, even though they order the exact same thing every single time that they come in. Yeah.
Yeah. But
that's interesting. So with that critical eye that we talked about earlier, what does it look like for you to step back and actually appreciate the beauty of what's in front of you? Because being in the trenches, owning something, working, you know, as hard as you guys do, I'm sure is that a struggle? Is that a daily thing? Or?
It's a super struggle, and to be honest, it takes moments like this.
Yeah, where you're like, reflective.
Even just the other day, like, even having a hard conversation with an employee, like, hearing their feedback of, like, where they feel like the company is it's eye-opening to be like,
man.
Okay,
I had one
well,
of those recently too, yeah.
You know, it's just like, you know, all I did today was wake up, put on a diaper, like walk in and like start living.
Not on
like,
yourself.
If
Chad walks around with a diaper on all the time.
That way I don't have to use the restroom.
Yeah, can work harder.
But, yeah, I mean, a lot of times it takes moments of clarity from whether it's a customer or an employee or anything.
When you're a driver.
To be real, to be woken up again.
Yeah.
When you're a driver that is just like pushing, executing, it is like, it does take those moments where somebody that is not a driver and who maybe even sometimes in your mind you are a little critical of, you're like, man, I just wish they would push harder or work faster or whatever. But it's those moments where their natural balance of, well, this is what I'm seeing. And you're like, I've just been driving. Like, I've just been looking straight forward. I wasn't looking to the side.
Right.
You know, like
the carnage trail of like, you know.
I didn't realize how much I was leaving in the wake of, you know, my execution. That's those moments of clarity and reflection with somebody who can critically look with new eyes at something or different eyes is it's kind of tough to stomach sometimes. It can be.
No, for sure. Especially
but it's super necessary.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
I think people, I don't know, for me a lot of times people think that you should have every answer.
Sure.
And in the way I discover a lot of answers is by being in that moment, because I trust. It goes back to like, well, I trust my abilities and I know how to create a positive experience.
Right.
But it's hard to teach people. Well, like, well, what happens when so and so does this?
Right.
I'm like, well, you know, that's the anomaly. Like, but yeah. I think with any organization, it's like you just have to be aware, like, other people can bring you information that can change your perspective on everything. And just not being like, well, you don't matter, or like...
Sure, or closed off, or
for sure,
pretentious
because
in it,
even though you have a vision of what that means, like, you need to know, like, how far off you are, because in your brain, it could look completely different.
For sure.
Like what you're saying. It's just like, well, I thought, you know, I was doing this. I thought I was connecting with you this way. And you're telling me that I'm not. So, like, let me reevaluate how I engage with you.
Yeah.
It's good, man. So, you and Jen have been on this, like, kind of trek together. The plant shop is the only thing that's really, like, stayed. You've done 3 different brands. Whenever you were building furniture and stuff for the plant shop, what was it called then? I forgot.
Bent on Creativity.
That's right. Did the
It's actually called Bent, and then like the website was Bent on Creativity.
I gotcha. Do you still do any of that to any regard?
Rarely.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty rarely.
Just like pretty much sold all your tools and
For the most part,
moved
yeah.
and invested into okay, yeah.
Yeah.
After you built, like there was quite a few of like picnic tables and stuff that probably you built, right, in there.
And okay, yeah, no, I built out most everything, but I didn't do the picnic tables.
I gotcha.
And that's
And even like at Stitch, like, you know, countertops, tabletops, tile, like all that jazz I just did.
You did? You did
yeah.
all the tile in there?
Yeah.
You tiled that whole place?
Yeah.
Oh wait, it's got concrete floors.
Well, just like the whole
the
thing.
backsplash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The walls.
Yeah, it took me a second to like calculate the fact that you didn't lay 49,000 square feet of
Still
tile.
though, wall tiles,
Yeah.
no joke.
No, not the geometric ones
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. So then you decided that, like, did you just decide to put that to bed and then do okay, yeah? Or did you do okay, yeah, and the trajectory kind of left you no more time to do Bent on Creativity?
I would say a little bit of both. I still had a few projects and enough requests that
Yeah.
I could do a few things, but yeah, for the most part, I think it was just I felt like Oklahoma City wasn't ready for a high-end furniture builder.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot, like any of my quote-unquote like profitable projects were out of state. And so,
Really?
yeah, so
That's interesting. We just covered that on like the last podcast. How did you ship them, or did you like hand deliver them, or what did you?
both. Yeah.
Both. How did shipping go?
It was
Were these like big tables and stuff, or what did you
yeah.
ship?
So some of the things were just you would just get a freight cost
Right.
and be like, cost this much to ship it. you
Right.
know? But then the other projects like Warby Parker, like I just hand delivered it, drove it down there.
Nice. You did something for Warby Parker?
Yeah, I did some of their pop up. Like
Nice.
it went from like doing shop goods to them saying, "Hey, we like that. Like, we got this, and this." And so I did some stuff in New York, and then Nashville. I had to think about, and then Austin.
That's awesome.
That's sick, dude. Super cool.
So, I mean, I'm sure there's some people listening to this that are like, "Yeah, I would love to start a business, but I don't have capital funding. I don't
Yeah.
have a great idea." Like, I'm sure it was a process
We
for
were
you.
grassroots, man.
Yeah, talk about like
So,
what it takes to actually start a business and go after it the way that you guys did.
well, I think there's pros and cons with every scenario, right? Like, if you can get capital from a bank or through investors, then obviously it should be more stable, but it normally takes a track record as well, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
So most banks aren't giving you anything unless they
Right.
can leverage something. So unless you have homes and land and all that stuff that you can couple, like, they're not really just super eager to be like, yeah, we'd love to give you some
Sure.
money
Here's a
when
$250,000.
when you've never done anything
Yeah.
before.
We believe in you. Yeah.
Yeah, you look nice.
Yeah.
But the other side is like how we started was I could do wedding photography. Like I could pick up shoots that
Sure.
just help me kind of like fund projects. But I don't know, like I think I just always got lucky. Like enough. I don't know about luck, but I just did enough groundwork to always have business.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it all comes to like human connections, you know, like
Yeah,
for
what does
sure.
it take to make a connection to get a project?
Right.
You know, just
Yeah.
takes a willingness to get out there and like, for guttering, like I literally went and just called roofers.
Right.
And then, I drove down to like Wichita. Like if there was a tornado, I drove down there and was just like called all these people to say, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
And so I think for a small business person to start, I think it's all mental of like not being able to say what is failure and like not shutting down.
Yeah.
That's one of Tyler and I's like inspiration or foundational goals for this podcast is to like show people what it took to get started via your mouthpiece.
Right.
And really just inspire that. We specifically come back to a word, grit. Like there's so much, for whatever reason, there's a lot of power to that word for us, and I think that is so important. Just to like, first of all, like kids are flimsy. They don't want to hear the word no.
Sure.
Like they don't want to, when you call that roofer, and he's not like, heck yeah, come on, we've got 7. Like, do you call the next one after that when he says, yeah, man, we got a guttering guy, we do it ourselves, whatever. Sure. Like, do you call the next one? Do you take that personal? Do you keep moving? Like,
and then after 10 of those, do you say, guess I'm not in the gutter business?
Guess it's just not in the cards for me, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, but like to me, I've never labeled. I think what helps me is to not label myself. Like personally, what helps me is don't label yourself.
Like don't attach your identity to anything that you're doing. Is
yeah,
that what you
well,
mean?
I'm saying so like. If I'm a guttering person and I call 20 people and nobody gives me a guttering job, well, I might call 10 other people to be like, hey, do you have anything that I could tile? Like, can I, like, almost everything that I would always do would have something a little bit more going on.
Right.
Not pigeonholing yourself.
Yeah,
to
and
like,
so, like, you have to, like, just be committed to, like,
that's another
doing
thing.
whatever it takes to define, like,
I think people get hung up on their passion too.
Yeah.
Like they use that as an excuse, and not that guttering was your passion, but you set
sure.
out to do guttering. If you got told no, you would simply pivot. And a lot of people are like, yeah, but I only do guttering, like or whatever.
Right.
Like they have kind of like a tunnel vision based on what their plan is.
Sure.
And they just assume that because they have a plan or they have a passion that people are just going to come pay for it.
For sure. Or even like, you're a painter. It's like, I want to paint for the rest of my life. Well, you don't get to just like wake up and paint on a canvas and now you're a painter for a living. Like there's so many dimensions, so many dimensions to what it takes to actually make your passion a livelihood.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are like, oh man, well that's not my passion. My passion isn't, setting up an LLC and marketing myself. It's like, well, it takes that. There are aspects of doing your passion for a living that are gonna not be fun.
Right.
And you're gonna wake up some mornings and you're not gonna want to paint.
Right.
But it takes showing up and like putting in the work and committing to that thing to see success actually happen.
For sure. So, how did the evolution from OK Yeah to Stitch, branding wise, conceptually, like your space now looks very different than well, not very different. I guess the one element that's the same is, of course, it's full of plants.
For sure.
But other than that, it's very different than what OK Yeah was, than what the original plant shop was. Like, how did that evolution take place? Was it driven by you and Jen, or was it driven by, West Village and being in a new spot, or what was the?
I think we always go back and forth and say, well, why didn't we just keep it OK Yeah or whatever? But really, in the moment, I felt like it was so different conceptually, as like what you're saying, as well as like the business model was different, that I didn't necessarily want these things to carry over. Like, oh, well, I wish I wish you would have kept this, and we had these experiences when we did this at OK, yeah. And so that's kind of why we brand shifted, was because we wanted everybody to have this new experience with this new name attached to it.
Yeah.
So, that's why I feel like Stitch is Stitch, and kind of the reason why we even stuck with that name is just because we believe in, like, behaviors attach you to anything.
Yeah.
So, like, our connections based upon our interactions, like we're kind of like whittling the fabric of who we are and what we are based upon what we do.
Yeah.
And so it's almost the flip of, like, be totally fun to, like, internally know that, like, all your behaviors matter.
Yeah.
And so it kind of went the opposite direction of, like, if we care really about what we do and who we are, like, let's make it our billboard. Let's make it our name. Like, and so, like, intentionality is kind of what we talk about often, and just, like, knowing that when you come into our space, like, we want you to feel that.
Yeah.
Like, based upon how we engage with you, based upon the quality of our product, and, like, just kind of a reminder, like,
Yeah.
Stitch, like, our actions kind of are defining who we are in front of us. Can't really escape it, so why not, like, put it out there?
Yeah.
Your store, I love it.
Your store. You ready?
What do you
I
think
like
about
this painting. This painting's
you get to take that.
legit.
This art is good.
Is good.
I'll take it.
This muffin is
I'll take
good.
it.
So, like, your space and all of it looking very different and totally rebranding was very intentional. How did that space come about? How did that opportunity, where did it come from? The moving into West Village, like, essentially, like, we have chapter here, and I feel very fortunate too, but it was kind of a dumb luck sort of opportunity.
Yeah.
How was it with moving from OK, yeah, which was thriving? I mean, every time I would go in there, there's people on laptops, there's people having meetings, there's people. But how did you transition from that to, like, one of the most beautiful coffee shops, if not the most beautiful coffee shop in
America.
America?
Yeah, totally America.
And just like, how did that opportunity come about, and how did you transition into that?
We had landlord issues, I think, is really why we moved.
Right.
But no, it was kind of the same deal. Like, one of the developers of this project was a customer, and he kind of said, "Hey, I don't ever want you to move because this is cool, but, like, if you ever saw yourself in a situation," and I did find myself in a situation. So yeah, I think it was a weird, random, like, right timing.
Yeah.
So.
And then I know that construction here has been kind of slow, but how did you weather? Because I know you got in much later than you were supposed to have, right?
Right.
As has everyone, as goes construction. It's not, I mean,
Sure.
It's not that they've done anything especially shoddy. It's just that, like, that's kind of the nature of construction.
Yeah, it's the nature of the beast, for sure.
So how did you, like, in that time where you were closed over there,
We
not open
we had
here?
a spot in Bricktown that kind of helped us sustain the coffee, but also, to be honest, like, we didn't too. Like, we had to spend money we didn't want to spend, for sure.
Yeah.
Was that really hard on you and Jen? I mean, like, I imagine not having a place to go to work that you can really make your own because it's so temporary in Oklahoma City, in your other spot, and B, being used to a level of income that has essentially paused. I mean, was that difficult to manage, like in your home? Like, how did you guys cope with that?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was not ideal on any level.
Right.
Luckily, I mean, if I'm honest, like, just luckily the plant shop has done well enough to help us out financially, and
Right.
also kind of able just to do some off-site things that didn't require your doors to be open. But yeah, I mean, every week that we got bad news was like super tough to swallow.
Sure.
Like, I definitely got to the point that I was just like, not a nice
going back
person.
to guttering.
Not a nice person.
Yeah.
And I knew that, like, CMS didn't, it's not like they're trying to, like,
Of course.
sabotage you.
Right, yeah,
it
of
hurts
course.
you, but I'm just like, guys, like, I don't know if you're probably not used to being in this circumstance where you're helping a small business open, nor have you done a restaurant, but like this is like devastating news.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna come steal stuff from your house so I can sell it. No, yeah, I mean, it was not ideal by any stretch of the imagination.
So then, opening up, how late did you open? Because this is like an important part of entrepreneurialism. It can't all be your work ethic that pushes through. There are a lot of things that you can't control that happen on a timeline that is not ideal for you. That happen.
You get robbed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like,
Yeah,
so
for
how long was that period where you thought you were going to open?
I mean, I think
to
it was
where
about
you did open.
I mean, I think we were definitely 3 months difference, if not longer. I do think the realization that you do learn is like there's a reason why, especially in the restaurant industry, it's like they basically just say plan to lose money for a year.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I think probably anybody kind of says, "Oh, well, that won't be me."
Sure. Because my idea is better. My
like,
intuition
from
is
our
better.
standpoint, is like we kind of looked at like, oh, we're reopening, but really we weren't. Like, we're starting a whole new concept, and like people have missed our spot for 8 months. That we're kind of no longer a part of their daily ritual.
Right, because
So,
they
like,
had to find something else.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think from our standpoint, like, we did learn, if anything, more like the value of a customer. And I think most people that have never opened a small business and they've only worked for a corporation that like always has customers.
Yeah.
I think you learn, like, dang, like, people don't just come see you.
Yeah.
People don't just use you.
Right.
And like I think people truly don't understand what it took for somebody like Michael Dell to be Michael Dell. You know what I'm saying? Or like, they weren't overnight successes.
Yeah.
Right.
They had to do some crazy stuff to get customers to believe in who they are every single day.
Yeah. That's the thing too, is it's a perseverance and steadfastness for every day you're showing up.
You know how many times they've messed up and lost millions of dollars because they make a decision? Like, it's the same thing for a small business.
Sure.
Sometimes you make bad decisions.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have to be prepared, like, oh, well,
Maybe
we really
even-
screwed that.
Maybe
Yeah.
even more often because it's just you and your voice. Like, whenever you get to a size like that, ideally there are safety nets
Yeah.
in
For
place.
sure, yeah, like-
but so yeah, I mean, like the risk the risk is, I feel like, a lot greater whenever scale wise.
Yeah.
Whenever you're in a small business versus.
I say definitely yes and no, but I think that's why like they have obligations to their shareholders,
Sure.
and they're like, well, if you hit this, then you fire this.
Yeah.
Right.
And so like,
Right.
yeah, it does. I don't think it personally hurts them
Yeah.
Right.
as much. It definitely affects their organization. But yeah, like as a small business owner, like you have to be willing to like roll with punches and know just
Sure.
like your life is never consistent.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to deal with your issues. Like you can't 8 to 5 it and sweep it.
Sure.
under like it will demolish you.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody's out there. Like I know we talk a lot about small business and how like personal and fun and everybody wants to be a part of that culture, but the reality is like nobody really wants to support you.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not negative, but like
Sure.
It's just
We-
nonchalant.
it's
Like,
nonchalant. It's
yeah.
not negative, but I tell Jen all the time, like by all the time, like 3 times in my life, like make a list of the small businesses that you support, and I think you're gonna find out like you don't support very many
That's
small
super
businesses.
interesting.
And so
I
like,
would totally probably be shocked. That would be a great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you're like, you get so far involved with like what you think small business means and like, why don't people buy into you? Well, the honest answer is people are just, they have behaviors.
Yeah.
And you're not a part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and it's not like, it's not negative.
Right.
And it's not like they're bad
not they-
people.
yeah.
But like most people go to Walmart and they go to Starbucks and it's a reality.
That's true. Yeah.
It's just a reality. And like when you buy into these things of like, oh, I'm going to impact my community. And the real thing is like, can you just meet people's needs?
Yeah.
And then after that, like you will impact them and
Yeah,
they
right.
will feel a difference. And it's just, like small business needs immediate reactions from people. And it's just not a reality,
Yeah.
I think.
That's super insightful. The only person I know in my life that does literally that is my aunt. She lives in Dallas, but she literally has a specific list of local restaurants that their family only eats at.
That's
She
dope.
fights really hard to, not go to Chili's. Is the first thing that comes to mind. I think everyone fights not to go to Chili's, but
Baby back ribs,
but-
barbecue sauce.
She fights every craving to go to Applebee's every day.
But that would be such. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that exercise because I think that I'll be shocked, as community minded as I am, and as empathetic as I am amongst people in my peer group, and want to see them succeed. I shop on Amazon a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
like-
mean, I don't think it's a deal of like, hey, should we feel guilty about our
Well, no, but-
behaviors? But
yeah.
it's more of like, hey, if you want to be successful, I think you have to be realistic with what's about to come your way.
Yeah.
Sure.
And like, that's what that's what I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, I don't think that people don't want to support you. It's just like they've established a behavior for so long that you just can't be like, hey, well, don't behave that way anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, only support me. And
Right.
like, don't you believe in my family?
Sure.
Like, you can't
Yeah.
making it some super personal deal, because it's not that they don't care about you.
Sure.
It's just like you have to give people grace to like learn what the hell it actually means to
Yeah.
be small business.
Right.
And like, that's why Portland or Austin, all these different cultures, like they have years and years of human behavior that they just do.
Yeah.
And it's not like they started out that way. They just like, they have enough history. Like that's how they shop. That's how they behave. They can go to a farmer's market because it's on every corner. Like, that's because their culture exists a certain way.
Yeah.
Ours doesn't. Like,
So how do you toe the line between that as a local business owner of like, okay, this isn't working, so we're either going to pivot or we're going to stay in this realm and fight for the culture that we hope to see in the future?
right.
Like, how do you toe the line on that? Because it's literally your livelihood at stake, in that wrestle.
I think, like, this is probably something Colton and I talk about all the time, because you can make an argument of, like, well, stick to your guns, right?
Sure.
But I think the honest reality is, like, what is the true perception of customers? And I think most of the time it's not the perception of what we think that we're actually doing. Such as we talk all the time, like, broad terms of, like, well, how does somebody perceive what exceptional coffee is? Is it because they see an espresso machine? Is it because they know the grinders? Like, what is it,
Sure.
like, when they leave that now they're saying, well, this is a great cup of coffee.
Right.
And I think most of the time, like, the story that we're telling
Mocha
ourselves.
syrup. That's how they.
Yeah. It's like.
A lot of whipped cream and sprinkles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's Starbucks.
Yeah.
Pure sugar.
Yeah.
And so, like, when people engage with you, like, 90% of the time, they don't have the same idea of, like, of your idea.
Sure.
Like, we talk about, like, extraction theory and, like, TDS and things and, like, particle sizes, and I can guarantee you no customer walks in thinking that
Yeah.
and walking out and being like, I'm sure glad that they TDS this coffee today.
Okay.
Because it's great. Like,
TDS 10 out of 10.
just nailed the TDS on that one, didn't you, bro? So, yeah, like,
They care more about the foam art.
yeah, most of the time it's like, if you make latte art, I know you're a good coffee
Sure.
shop. Or if you can tell me what coffee you have just because you know it off the top of your head. Like, there's just bigger shifts. And so I think we personally, as a business owner, had to be willing to ask the different questions.
Yeah.
Of when are we actually losing our identity?
Yeah.
Like, how far can you go to meet the customer's need? Because I think you'll find is after we have our 20 conversations of just normal conversation, then you actually want to know what the hell's going on
Yeah.
with our coffee program.
Yeah.
So, like,
Because I think, like, with my limited knowledge, how I judge a good cup of coffee, 80% of that is based on the interaction and the experience that I have with whoever is giving me that coffee, however that coffee is presented.
Yeah.
And then the other 20% is like, does this taste terrible? No. Then it's a good cup of coffee, and I had a great experience here, and that's a great cup of coffee.
is there peppermint mocha in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how we know.
So, let's wrap this up. I got two
Let's do
questions.
it. Let's
for
wrap
you.
it. It's Christmas time.
What the hell is TDS?
Let's not go there.
Let's
But
do it.
let's-
Let's give us a little
Does
bit
the
of.
T stand for tamper?
It's tampered.
Let's give everyone a little bit of your a smidgen of your coffee education.
Total dissolved solids.
Okay.
Wow.
How gritty your coffee is?
Exactly.
If I can grind it in my teeth,
If I
it's
can
good
dip,
coffee.
if I can dip it afterward.
Grind it. So no, like, essentially, it's a measurable outcome of, like, how much solids have been dissolved from the water and the compounds, like, into your cup of coffee.
And when
And,
you
like,
say
there's-
solids, that's like not a perceivable, like, you're just talking, like, it's like microscopic.
Yeah, it's just a
Essentially the
compound,
things-
like,
okay.
what you're drinking.
Right.
Like, why does it have these flavors?
Right,
Well, it's
right.
measurable components that we're dealing with. And so there's kind of like historical data of, like, if you're within a certain percentage, then it's also going to have these tastes, these kind of characteristics Like, it's not going to taste too bitter, or if your coffee tastes weak, like, we can TDS it and give you a reason why your coffee tastes the way it does. And so, yeah, you don't lean on that 100% because, you know, your taste is your taste. So
sure.
But it also does help you, like, if you're way out of spectrum of, like, this coffee always tastes sour, like, what the hell's going on? Well, I can take this tool, measure it, and be like, well, it's because I'm way over here. I'm way on this wrong spectrum. Now I know, okay, well, I'm going to find the grind or coarsen it.
Sure.
Like, do I need more water, less water? Like, it's a way to, like.
So the taste of your coffee could have nothing to do with the beans themselves.
Correct. It could, majority of the time, if you're in third wave coffee that actually kind of has this parameter of, like, what they believe in, then you're not going to buy coffee that tastes like shit.
Yeah.
You're just not going to buy it.
So how does that, like, using this technology and this, like, measurable paradigm, where does Keurig land?
Well, you know, like, I think that's
like,
just
are home machines capable of creating, like, actually fundamentally solid coffee?
Yeah, 100%. The problem with any, like,
I'm being totally genuine.
No, for sure.
Not asking
The problem with
goofy
any
question.
like batch brewer, it has limitations. Like, the more like, I think this is also the other illusion. You know, pour overs came about, and everybody was like,
Sure.
that's the answer.
That's
because,
the best way.
Well, what that does is it just gives you more control. Like, yeah, if I know what I'm doing, then I can actually change things on the fly. I can do all these different things to create a different result.
Sure.
Well, like, the cheaper the instrument is, unfortunately, it's only going to give you fewer options of, like, how much water and what the flow rate is and how much agitation's going on. So, like, you're going to have a specific result every time, good or bad.
Yeah.
And so, you know.
Do you feel like there's, like, also, like, this mystification over, like, oh, it takes 15 minutes to do a pour over, so it must taste better?
So I think people think, like, oh, they know what they're doing. Check this craft out. Like manual brews are cool.
Yeah.
You get to be a part of it, experience something. I think mystification of anything in a craft, especially, like, being culinary craft or being a barista, is that people believe a recipe is like, oh, well, this recipe brings this result. Well, in the coffee world, like, it's every brew's, like, everything's different.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything's different because
Like, the variables are endless.
the variables are endless, and you have to know kind of enough about your craft to know how to change things. I mean, that's just all it is you have to know your craft. And that's what, like, a good barista does, is they're able to see things in a short amount of time, making it a change that brings about a different result for you.
So
Metaphor for life in there somewhere.
on your journey to
It's all about pivoting.
On your journey to becoming a competent barista, or, you know, capable coffee maker, just, like, two resources that somebody that wants to make better home coffee, what would be palatable, digestible for me if I wanted to go learn how to adequately do a pour over? Is just, like, going to YouTube, or is there a book, or is there a website, or what? Like, how could I better my coffee game?
Or even appreciate the craft of coffee.
Yeah, there you go. Or even appreciate when I'm having a actually good cup of coffee.
Yeah. So there is, like, SCA is a huge coffee association community that
Is that on
it's
the
kind of
internet?
like, yeah.
Or what
I
is-
can we send links and stuff like
Sure,
that?
of course.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
can put a link.
The
below.
link right here.
So I would love to send, like, a few links that are, like,
Yeah. Send
they
us
represent the
links,
coffee culture.
And, yeah,
like,
we'll put it in the the channel for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there a book or anything like that you
I think
specifically?
Coffee Atlas is kind of like a sheer go-to. It's good. I think it's a starter for any. Like I would ask any barista to read it.
Read it like front to. It's not a reference thing. It's like you read it.
Yeah, I think, and that's what I'm saying. So yeah, you can go to YouTube and you can learn anybody that says,
Sure,
do this 3-minute pour over, and
right,
this is gonna taste so great. Well, the problem is, and not to go down the rabbit hole, but the rabbit hole is like water is
different everywhere.
a beast,
right?
You know, it's you have like everybody's water is different.
Sure.
And so yeah, they have third water out there. They have all these different variables of like, cool, buy distilled water, put this in it, and you're gonna get this consistent result. But like, even it's all different. Like you have to be able to taste something, absorb the result, and know where do I take this coffee from here.
Yeah.
If the extraction's bad. And so like,
aren't there like 4 main like taste categories that you're like tasting for in that?
Yeah,
What
I
are
mean,
those?
so I think the other weird thing is like people are looking for this perfect extraction.
Sure.
When really it's a billion
There's
over
just,
and
again.
so
so
every
many
particle
variables,
is extracting at a different rate, and what you're hoping for is like a harmonious balance.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like, it's just a rabbit hole, because then you're talking about your grinder, and like, how consistent is your grinder? When's the last time you cleaned your grinder? Like,
Right.
you know. Like,
Do you ever think about like just the baffling extensive evolution that had to take place in order for us to get here with like any sort of craft?
But I
Like
say
the
all
front
those
end.
things to like, it's not to overcomplicate it. It's just to know like,
It's to
when you don't have certain knowledge, you're shooting in the dark.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it gives
It's,
me insight to know that like if I make a cup of
It
coffee,
all can be achievable.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like, and there's people out there that don't know any of this information that follow a recipe that get a good result.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's
They're
not-
happy with their coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I guess like last question, if you could go back 10 years to young Chad Grubbs,
Let's do it.
what would be the one sentence you would say to yourself? Like, what would be the one piece of advice that would help you along your entrepreneurial development? Like, could have been anything specific at the time. It could just be one like overarching, don't be too hard on your, like what's the one thing that you felt like you really struggled with that had you known what you know now, you could have gotten over it, sooner or been more prepared?
It's a tough question.
It is a tough question.
I don't, man. So as an American, like,
Oh yeah, it could be
Come on.
anything. It can be literally anything.
so I think like as an American, like, I've always struggled. Like, I think a lot of my decisions didn't always bring me the best financial results, and this could be weird, like most of my family has had the opposite experience. Most of their decisions have,
Have panned out really well for us.
so like, I think I by nature always struggle with that. Like,
Does that go back to your competitive
well,
athletics?
I don't think
competing
it's
with your-
competitive. It's like, now I have a family,
Sure.
and I wish that I could give them those same things.
Sure.
Right.
And I know 10 years ago, if I would have just decided to like be a company man or something like that, like, but I do think like what I have learned is like the impact that I make is normally far greater than what I assume it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because I look at it through the lens of like, how to improve. And I know grand scheme, like, we make a ton of positive connections,
Yeah.
So I think it's just learning the value of humanity. Like, if I could tell myself that 10 years ago, I think it's just understanding like impact on the community is much broader than like a financial thing that
Sure.
you give to
Sure.
a community.
That's good, man.
But I don't know.
It's deep. I just need to like sit in it for a second. Yeah, no, I mean that's really important. We battle with that a lot in our household as well because there are people that you don't compare yourself, or I don't mean that I compare myself from like a deep dark they have a Porsche and I don't,
Right.
nothing
No,
so
no.
superficial as that, but it's easy to see somebody else's life and go, maybe I should have just kept that job. And, but then I think that measuring the quality of your soul, like 10
Yeah.
years from now, your story will obviously, or your position in life will obviously be different. And I just don't know that you would change anything, that you would change the time that you got to spend with your wife, that you would change, the time that you got to meet people, do stuff like this,
Right.
like it's very different. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Well, I think it's a good place to leave it. I'm ready to go get some breakfast, hang out.
Yeah. Thanks 10 years ago, Chad, for opening our eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
I don't know what that means, but
Well, thanks for coming and hanging out with us this morning, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm excited to go
I appreciate it.
chill and just release a little bit now.
Let's do it.
All right.